chance. They were born in bloody circumstance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. A voice from the underground, given room to breathe, not puppy drowned. So die if you get the chance. Better men than you've been, let this dance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. I have seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me away. To go, leave me, run like you never did. No, believe me, run like you never run before.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast. I am possibly the slightly unfamiliar first voice of Jonny McGinty. Nice to see you as part of our new rotated lineup. I'm joined this evening by Craig Manson. How are you, Craig?
I'm currently rotating.
And Rory Baldwin. How are you, Rory?
I'm good, thank you. How are you both?
Yeah, very good. We are live tonight on Twitch, on X, on YouTube and Facebook through our super secret Patreons only Facebook group. If that's something you would like to be involved in and you would like some bonus episodes, an extra hour of slightly swearier content every week and some of our more exclusive episodes about sort of different things, you can join us over there on patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast. Lots for us to get into tonight. Some big bits of news across all the pro teams and set up in Scotland the last week or so. Before we do though, Craig, obviously because you and I are here, I think we should start with a word and a moment for a good friend of ours who we lost just this past week, a big name in rugby around our area, Neil Winton, I think taken from us a bit soon. Very good friend of ours, teammate of both of ours, Craig, coached with you, coached me, and was a part of How a Fife and rugby around here for quite a long time.
Yeah, it's been about one of those ones where very early taken. He's been part of my life since I started playing rugby around the age of 14. And he's been involved with the How a Fife for a long time. Also a very, very keen golfer, worked for the RNA. And yeah, just an absolute shock to all his teammates, all of us at the How a Fife. Just didn't expect it to happen. So yeah, before I get any more emotional about it, I'll leave it at that. But just going to miss him, you know.
Yeah, indeed. I think a lot of clubs have got a lot of guys like Neil, and I think a lot of clubs would be a lot better if there were more Neils around them as well. So, yeah, just before we kick on tonight, safe travels, Dingo, rest easy, and we'll see you again soon, hopefully, mate. Thank you.
Not too soon.
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
So, before we, indeed. So we have, like I say, got quite a lot to carry on with tonight. We've got URC news to talk about. We've got the Women's Six Nations squad, and then we'll have a little bit of a preview of the Calcutta Cup in the main podcast, and then we'll free it up a little bit in the Hands of the Ruck podcast for our patrons. After that, I think we've got some stuff that we probably want to get off our chests that's gone on around the rugby world this week.
Yeah, I'm going to get
Before we do, though, it's everyone's favourite time of year. It is. Lovely.
I'll get to try all my accents.
Six Nations break week, URC weekend. The time when we traditionally get some of the highest quality URC rugby on show, and that was certainly the case this weekend, Craig. I think generously Edinburgh had quite a lot of frontline players available compared to some of the other teams in the URC, but still some fairly troublesome moments in the trip to Parma this weekend.
Can we talk about Glasgow? Because I really don't want to talk about it. No. Yeah, I'm finding... How can I put it? I'm finding it, when we're in Wales and Scotland seem to switch off at half time, and admitted later by said captain Finn Russell, they seemed complacent. And I don't know whether it's complacency from the players in Edinburgh or just they had one of those games, but they just, unfortunately, first half was full of mistakes, they just couldn't get a rhythm going. They were making silly wee mistakes as well, and just they seemed absolutely and utterly out of character. I'm worried. I've mentioned this before. I'm worried about the bluntness of Sean Everett's attack. I feel that Edinburgh have really taken a slight step backwards. He has admitted that he wants them to be stronger and more abrasive, and he wants them to take on people. But I find that they've lost they've gained a sledgehammer, lost their ballet dancer, if you know what I mean. And I'm really quite worried about it, to be perfectly honest. They've got, as we've talked about many times before, and I'm sure Rory will come in with his side of things and how he feels about it. But for me, I'm really concerned that we've got some phenomenal players, and they are just either not performing or being misused. And I'm just a bit concerned because, fair enough, I've said a lot about Italy, Italian rugby, and how Italian rugby is really moving forward, and we're really seeing a huge difference in them, and they're becoming stronger and stronger. But really, you would expect the team that was full of the quality that it had to go down and give Zebri a good seeing to, and unfortunately, that didn't seem to happen.
Yeah, Rory, they kind of touched on it a little bit there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like a team, they might be, each kind of 2 or 3 years past their prime, but a team, the back row that Edinburgh fielded of Richie, Watson, Mata, I think it was.
Yeah.
That back row should not be struggling. I mean, they didn't really take control of that game until they emptied the bench, which I guess shows the sort of the depth maybe that they've got compared to Zebri. But they weren't. They were kind of stuttering a bit. It was our pal Ben Whitehouse refereeing, was it not?
Yes.
Which probably didn't help matters too much, but they just they didn't look quite sort of. I think they're a little bit like England. Actually, they're still in search of an identity. I mean, Cockers wasn't amazing, but he gave Edinburgh an identity. They were just going to be really hard, full stop, hard to beat, hard to break down, just hard. Mike Blair kind of swung them the opposite way, but again, they kind of knew what they were doing. They were maybe playing too much rugby. But yeah, at the moment, I think you're right, Craig. They don't really seem to know where they're going, and they've got a lot of talent. I mean, with Ben Healy, you'd almost forgive them if they became like Dan Parks era Cardiff Blues or something, just a kind of pack and a 10, kicking everything all the time. I'm sure Healy could probably play that kind of game plan. I mean, it wouldn't be amazing to watch, but it would probably get the results.
I have to also say, sorry, Jonny, you're on a little bit of a delay there. Sorry, I don't mean to interject, but
no, that's all right. No, you two are the
but,
Edinburgh experts. On you go.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, well, maybe Rory's is an expert in it. But
I just went to uni there for 4 years. I don't know anything about Edinburgh rugby.
You know how to put a well-placed brogue on your foot. I think, and I'm trying not to single out players. I really don't want to single out players. Let's just say, however, that just as Rory has said, when the bench came on, especially at scrum half, there was a distinct difference. And I feel that Edinburgh, with Ben Vellicott playing, are alive. And I feel that other scrum halves who play for Edinburgh when Ben Vellicott isn't on the field do tend to try to go into this kicking game and this a slower game. I find that, the expecting the scrum to dominate, so a ball's left at the back of the scrum, and there's problems, or especially at maul time. Oh yeah, we're just going to maul it. I'm going to leave it, and then all of a sudden the ball disappears into the middle of the maul, and it's turned over. I just feel that we need to refocus and bring this quickness back that we've had when we had. When Blair Kinghorn was at 10, we seemed to have the ball moving around quicker, and I just feel that Mike Blair injected this pace on the ball, and unfortunately we seem to have lost that.
Yeah, I think we probably all agree that Edinburgh are a team would say are less than the sum of their parts at the moment. I mean, Rory's talked about a back row with well over 100 good value international caps. Let's be honest. I mean, Bill Matta is still a target he's off to Bristol next season. Jamie Ritchie was Scotland captain up until very recently. And like it or not, we talk about scrum halves, we're talking about a Test British and Irish Lion at scrum half as well. So I think the question really for Edinburgh is what can they do to get that team performing at the level that they probably should be expected to perform at.
Yeah, I mean, they did, they got the bonus point win in the end. So I guess from the point of the league table, the mission was accomplished. But I don't know. Have they got an attack coach at the moment? Is Everett coaching the attack?
Yeah, no, it's, I've forgotten the attack coach's name. I'm having one of those days today. But yeah, we do have an attack coach. I think, I don't know. I think, there's Hamish Watson celebrating 150 caps for Edinburgh in that game. I just felt it was very low key, it was worrying, to be perfectly honest. I think that was probably my main emotion during the game.
Hell of a come down for Harry Patterson as well.
Yeah, that's
starting at fullback against France to yellow carded and away to Parma.
Yeah, I think going from 65,000 watching him and yelling his name to a handful of Italians and there were some absolutely fantastic, brave Edinburgh fans who have made the trip over there. As you say, a big come down for Harry Patterson.
So I think maybe a slightly worrying Friday night. Saturday night probably a bit more pleasing for the Glasgow fans. If anything, maybe a little bit of a worry that Glasgow could and probably should have killed that game off a little bit quicker. Two tries in the first 3 minutes, and to then sit at 14-0 until basically half time. I think a lot of Glasgow fans were probably expecting
bonus point by 10 minutes.
Basically, yeah. And we did get the bonus point. It was a nice, fairly comfortable win in the end. Dragons are a team who don't have a lot of Wales internationals, but when they are away, you notice. I mean, they were bringing on basically university players off the bench, and Glasgow made it light work in the end. But I think possibly could have been a little bit more clinical in the first half, Rory.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's. I think Everett said it in his post-match stuff. You know, when you score 2 tries in like under 3 minutes, I think it was on the clock, wasn't it? Or was the first try was 3 minutes? I can't remember. They scored 2. You know, they were 14-0 up, and then they're thinking, yeah, okay, probably Dragons. This is in the bag, and they probably, you know, did a Scotland and took their foot off the gas a bit. Which I guess would be, if you think it's a game's going to be a procession, you know you are going to do that to a certain extent. But yeah, it would have been nicer to see them kind of kick on a bit and just really put them to the sword. They should have been out of sight a lot longer than they were. I mean, I guess again overall the result is the right one. It's a pleasing one. They gave them a good chewing, as they would have wanted to. It sort of comes down to the manner of the victory that's raising the questions.
Yep. And a lot of performances in the backs, particularly from people who are, if not on the fringes of the Scotland setup already, Craig, are on their way to certainly being involved. Tom Jordan, who will become Scots qualified in autumn, looked fairly interested at 12. Another good game at 10 for Ross Thompson. And Stafford McDowell has got to be fairly close to making the test squad for Scotland very soon as well.
I think they'll make it. I think they'll get the opportunity to go into the squad and have a run around with them and see how they settle with the squad, etc. But really, you have to look at it and say, looking at our Scotland squad at this moment in time, barring what happens at this weekend, currently right now, if we look at the squad, it's fairly set, and there are. There's people in place to come in, and for example, if Tuipulotu is injured or can't make it or whatever's going to happen, whatever happens, they have someone who, like Cam Redpath, who can walk in and take over. So it's a difficult one unless we start going a little bit more Leinster-ish and Ireland-ish, where we've got the majority of the backs, etc., are made up of Glasgow players, but I don't really see them making a massive difference right now or getting the opportunities right now, because the squad is fairly set, and even the second string players or the backup players, etc., or the players that are fighting for the bench are fairly set as well. So I'm not entirely sure you'll see them that early. Because it's that whole old adage: who do you replace? Who would they come in and play for? But they are looking very, very good, and it makes me feel quite pleased for Scottish rugby moving forward. But the current bin fire off the pathway will be interesting to go from there.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
I think
actually an interesting thing too. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, on you go, Johnny.
It's interesting to jump onto that because we are moving sort of away from the URC. We've got a few weeks left. Glasgow are looking fairly set for a home quarter-final. Edinburgh are, barring something drastic happening, almost certain to be in the playoffs as well. Whether they can sneak into one of the home spots or not remains to be seen. But in the background to all of that, we did lose the Super Six, or the Super Series. I went through a couple of name iterations and things towards the end, and now it's finally been given the heave-ho, and we are looking at a whole new set of pathways and the return of the inter-district championship, Craig. And I think maybe we're going to see a real shake-up in the way that the players start to come into the pro teams now.
Yes. I think it's... I honestly don't know what to think, because I am looking at the way the women's game is developing and how the men's game has regressed, and the women's game works on has been working on the high-end Premiership clubs supplied a lot of the Scotland squad until we started giving professional contracts, and then professional contracts have taken them away from all the high level, all the Premiership clubs, and they've gone off to play for contract giving English Premiership clubs and French clubs. And now you're starting to see a little bit, and we'll talk about the women's game and the women's squad fairly soon, but you're starting to see a little bit of light coming through from Edinburgh. And I was going to say Edinburgh and Glasgow, but most of them are Edinburgh. And a lot of the Premiership clubs coming into Scotland squad for the women. So I'm really quite concerned about, are we just going to go to a situation where we're going to try and develop our players the old way of using, because it is going back to inter-district clubs, inter-district competition. Are we either going to lose a lot of our younger players that will go off and develop with English clubs or URC clubs, or are we going to are we going to still have this massive gap between inter-district players and professional players? And no matter what anyone says, I think the Super Six, no matter how much it cost and things like that, it was working a little bit. So it's a difficult one. I'm really don't know what to think. I haven't really studied it fully, as you probably can tell by my rambling answer. But I'm unsure of it, because I think I'm worried it's a backward step.
Rory, one thing that I think was kind of levelled at the Super Six was that the way the franchises were handed out and the way the bidding process and things worked meant it led to it being quite a sort of Edinburgh-centric league, obviously, with the 3 Edinburgh teams in it, and people in different areas bidding for franchises and being told they didn't have the infrastructure or whatever. Do you think maybe with it being replaced with the inter-district that there is a chance now that there will be more local rugby interest from local clubs in areas outside of Edinburgh and Glasgow, now that they're sending players up to play for Cali Midlands and the South Speed Oberham and stuff as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's long been people clamoring for the districts to come back, just, nostalgia and stuff like that. But I think actually exposing the districts is going to be a way that sort of mimics a kind of test rugby at a slightly lower level, because you come together with people you don't know that well, unless you're the West of Scotland who've picked like all of Mar, I think. But you've got like you'll have some guys that some guys you've played against, and you're having to come together and put a team together. And that sort of environment, okay, it's at a lower level, but I would imagine that there's now, with the Super Six, there's a bunch of coaches going about that have got more experience that can be, kind of filtered out to that. And it'll give them a bit more of a sense of what that's going to be like, whether it's going to, that'll replicate the kind of environment, but whether it's going to replicate the level of rugby they need to step up to, test rugby. For all that the Super Six was good, at least it was on for a sustained period of time, even though they kept shortening it. What they'll do, with all these the Super Six clubs that have invested and put money into the infrastructure and that kind of thing, that's going to now, I don't know what they do with that. Edinburgh, the district, is not going to need 3 of them. So whether they share the load around between them or what, I don't know how it's going to happen. I mean, the other thing to bear in mind is that Scottish Rugby are still recruiting for a performance director who's going to be delivering this new pathway. And so does that mean they're going to get in a yes man or woman who's going to, they're going to say, here's the pathway that we've come up with after we torpedoed the previous system. Go and do your best with that. Or are they going to say, well, this is what we think it should be, but have you got any ideas? Can you see a way to make it better? How much leeway are they going to give whoever's in the role? So yeah, there's loads of questions. Is that, what's going to happen to the kind of the rubble of the Super Six clubs? What and is, I mean, the district stuff is going to be good, but it's not going to be every weekend, every second weekend, is it? So, how are they going to get enough players playing at that just below the pro team level? I think the pro teams are bringing back A teams as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
Are
all the URC teams doing that? Is there going to be like a URC sub league, or
there was talk of there was going to be a URC A league.
So something like that would probably kind of help bridge the gap and keep those guys who are at that level that are able to play the district games, but give them something to play. week in, week out. I just worry it's not going to be enough regular high level competition for the players, which is what we need, what we've seen.
Yeah.
And you see it at the pro level as well,
certainly.
with younger players not getting enough game time for Edinburgh and Glasgow and then not being ready.
Yeah, certainly something that's worth keeping an eye on. It's a bit of a strange backward step to go forwards. I think a lot of people will be happy to see the districts back, but we'll watch on with interest and we'll see how that goes going forwards. We did also on Monday have, Craig, the Women's Six Nations squad announced, and you touched on it earlier. 7 uncapped players in the squad, 4 of them coming from Edinburgh's Celtic Challenge team. So is that a sign, do we think, that the Celtic Challenge, at least on the East Coast, is working?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think Glasgow. Let's just touch on the whole Glasgow thing. I think Glasgow have been unlucky, and when I say unlucky, Edinburgh have brought in a coach who is synonymous with women's rugby and knows virtually everybody in women's rugby, and so they have come in, and Shanks has come in, and Claire Cruikshank, has come in and done a fantastic job in Edinburgh because she knows a huge amount of players around the Scottish scene, and she's been able to attract them to come and play for Edinburgh. I think Glasgow, they're starting really from a base mark, and they've shown some real talent. Unfortunately, they've looked a little bit less organised. So I don't want to take anything away from Glasgow's hard work and the performance that Glasgow women have done. They've jumped a huge, jumped straight from playing in different leagues, etc., come together and started this team together. So they've done a great job in bringing the team together. I think they will grow dramatically over a period of time. Edinburgh have just been very, lucky is maybe not the wrong word. They've recruited incredibly well, and I think that started with the head coach. On the other side of things, however, if you look at, for example, Kieran Bell, who's come through from University of Edinburgh, she's been standout playing for Edinburgh, and she's been someone that I would have expected to have at least get a chance to come and train with the Scotland squad. Again, Nicole Flynn's come in from the University of Edinburgh as well. But then we have, a couple of uncapped players coming through from Premiership clubs as well. So it's quite exciting. I'm a bit disappointed that I've not seen Molly Pullman's not been brought into the squad. Molly's really performing very, very well at tight head prop, and she's incredibly powerful and a great go forward player. The same with Adele Ferry, and then I'm a bit biased with these two girls, but they've done a great job with Edinburgh, and I think that they definitely deserve a look at. I'm sure Brian has looked at them, and hopefully they'll get their opportunity at some point.
Yeah, we were at the Glasgow Edinburgh Celtic Challenge game over the festive period, and obviously I'm familiar with Molly and Adele from being around the club and things anyway. But even still, I was seriously impressed with Molly's carrying power when she came off the bench against Glasgow. I thought she was phenomenal, and I think it'll not be a long time before we start to see her around the Scotland setups. Rory, we talked about briefly how settled the men's squad is. I think the women's squad at the moment is in a fairly similar position. They're coming off a really successful WXV2 down in South Africa, and do you think they are coming in now with a bit more expectation for the Six Nations?
I mean, you'd like to think so. As you say, it's fairly settled. There's not too many new names certainly in the back division. I think there's only 3 or 4. Somebody I saw on Twitter, X, the other day, somebody suggesting that Scotland could field one of the best backlines in the Women's Six Nations, depending on the combinations and stuff and who's available for the other sides. But I think if they can figure it, it's sort of the age-old problem of Scotland is, can we figure out a way to get the pack to get them the ball they need I think the likes of Emma Orr and Francesca McGee, and obviously the kind of more familiar names like Chloe Raleigh and Rona Lloyd. If you can get them the ball in a bit of space, they can do a lot of damage. So yeah, it'll be good to see. I'm glad that it's mostly a kind of settled unit. I think the fact that a lot of the girls have gone down to England to play and are getting regular sort of high level professional games. I mean, you look at I think it's Loughborough versus Leicester this weekend. I think there's like six Scotland players on one side and 3 or 4 on the other in the squads. So they're again, it goes back to what I was talking about a minute ago, is just consistent high level rugby at the right level that prepares them for playing test rugby, which is a step up again. But
yeah, indeed. So we are looking forward to that. Obviously, the start of the Women's Six Nations. I think, like we say, teams looking good, looking settled, some interesting new faces, and we're hoping for big things, I think, this year from Scotland. We got just this afternoon the men's squad for Saturday's Calcutta Cup game. Return of the King is the big news, Craig, with Blair Kinghorn back at 15. But I think looking at the 23 that's been put out, it is hard to argue really with any of the selections.
It really isn't. It's great to see. My only concern is again, we're not really using, or we've not been using the subs bench very well in the first 2 games. But it's good to see. I think my heart is a little bit filled with joy seeing Jamie Ritchie getting back into the squad and getting his start at 6. I think he's when he's on his game, he's a fantastic fetcher, and I think he's got the ability to really take apart England when they're on their usual charge. He's going to be able to get in and turn over ball quite easily. So hopefully he'll be on his game. I think Darge and him will go hunting, and the old Australian will be battering through people. So him and what's his name, the Bath back rower, Sam
Underhill.
Sam Underhill, yeah, I think they'll start knocking heads at some point. So we'll wait and see what happens from there. But it's a settled squad. Great to see Kyle Steyn back. I think if he's proved himself when Darcy's not around, he's able to walk in and do a similar job, if not maybe a little bit. With him being a little bit taller, he's a little bit easier in the air, if you know what I mean. But really excited. My problem is I'm feeling a little bit. Scotland are the favourites. I'm feeling a bit comfortable, and I'm worried about it.
Yeah. We're not worried about the game. We're worried about the fact we're feeling comfortable.
Yes, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Exactly. Rory, I think a lot of people were kind of operating on the assumption that Jamie Ritchie was on the naughty step a little bit after the Wales game. Just sort of reading between the lines of some of the things that Finn Russell said in his post-match interview, and then seeing him disappearing from the team completely for France. Obviously, most Scotland players don't need any extra fire lit under them for a Calcutta Cup game, but do we think that Jamie's going to come out all guns blazing for this one?
I mean, there must have been something. I don't remember being worried by him watching the Edinburgh game at the weekend. And I wouldn't have, you wouldn't have thought if Jonny had said we're going to pick him against England, then that he would have been playing a full role there. But I guess he probably needed it to sort of get it out of his system after a kind of quite a poor showing against Wales. I mean, for me, I think Ritchie is almost as versatile as Christie, so I don't see why you couldn't have started Christie and brought Ritchie back onto the bench. That would have been my preference personally. But other than that, I think the team, as we've said, is pretty settled. Happy, pretty much completely happy with the back line. The pack is pretty much what you'd expect it to be. For me, it's the back row looks a little bit lighter than the monsters that England have got in their back row. it's almost like the worry is that England actually play like you always used to expect England to play and just kind of bully you up front, because we know how badly Scotland play against teams like that. But I guess the hope is that they pick this side, but then still decide to go and try and play some rugby, because I think that's going to play into Scotland's hands. Yeah, it's a strange one, because I saw the team and I thought I'm not that worried about it, mostly because they picked a bunch of names that I knew. Usually when I'm looking at an England team, there'll be, because I don't see much Premiership rugby, there'll be a bunch of guys I don't really know, and I'll think, okay, well, are they good? They must be picked because they're good. But when they're picking guys that I have heard of, like Danny Kerr, I was thinking, oh well, it's just Borthwick picking his mates again.
I think before we move to England, Craig, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I know this is going to upset you, but I'm going to do it to you anyway. The only thing maybe that is a bit of a surprise for the Scotland team is no WP Elliott on the bench, and we're sticking with the props that we've gone with the first two games. Do we think WP Nell's still not 100%, or is this a move away?
I think it's a bit of both. I think VP's certainly I think Hepburn has offered a fairly mobile guy around the park. I think Miller Mills has kind of given us almost a plug and play for VP, although I'm not sure he's as strong as VP in the scrummaging. But I think VP's just not ready. Well, I think it's a mixture of two things. I'm hoping he's just not ready to come back at that full level. But I also, there is that possibility that he's starting to fall out of favour now, because of no disrespect to him, but because of his age. So
yeah, I think it could be a sort of Hoggy thing. It's not necessarily he's fallen out of favour. It's just that he's not quite performing at the level that he or the coaches would want him to. So they have to look at alternatives.
Yeah, and also fair play to the two guys that have come in. They're new people to the squad. They're new players to the Scotland squad. They're going to be looking to make a difference to make sure they stay in the squad. So I'm sure with a new bit of oomph about them, they've come into the squad and Tooney's liked what he's seen. They also offer something that people don't really know. Okay, a lot of the English players will know Hepburn and Miller Mills, but they won't know them as in a Scotland squad. So maybe they're offering them a little bit something different that they're not a bit of unexpected.
Rory touched on England already, Craig. Alex Mitchell obviously is a big loss for them because he's been kind of a standout these first couple of games. He's having a great season with Northampton. Freddie Stewart is the other one who's a big question mark. He's out of the team completely. He's replaced by George Furbank. Anybody particularly scary, do we think, in the England 23?
For me, I think I think it's Ollie Lawrence is my concern, and I think Furbank. Now, I remember us all kind of giggling about Furbank coming in at fullback for England when Eddie Jones was coaching them, and we all kind of went this. And I remember his first cap, and unfortunately he dropped a few balls, and he just seemed to be overawed by it all. I have to say, watching him at Northampton, he is on a stormer at the moment. He's got his confidence high, and he's obviously unseated Freddie Stewart, who was along with Marcus Smith, the new Rugby Jesuses. So Jizai.
Can you have a plural of Jesuses?
I don't know. I wonder. I'm sure the listeners and our friends will come up, and because it's almost like a Jedi, but a Jizai. I honestly don't know.
I mean, I think Jesus is like Highlander. There can be only one.
Actually, oh God, it sounds terrible. Is it a crucifixion of Jesuses? I don't know. Is that like a gathering?
Yeah, it's a collective. If you can't have a plural, you can't have a collective 9 of them.
Okay, right, fair enough. Okay, but no, I think I think those two are interesting, and no matter what anybody says, Danny Kerr does give England, how can I put it? he gives them a strut and he gives them confidence. And he is a player that has been, no matter his age, he has been playing incredibly well for Harlequins. In fact, he's probably one of the leading lights of Harlequins. So we have to just give him that tip of the hat and say, you know, at his age, he's doing a very, very good job. And also, just for anyone out there, podcasters do actually can play rugby. You know, just in case anybody wants to, you know,
Speak for yourself.
You know, I'm old and knackered now. I've got no chance. But yeah, I think those. I don't fear the rest of them. I really don't. I don't really see them as you know, as anything different. Especially people like Dan Coles and stuff like that. We know these guys. We know how to take them apart. We've done it before. I think Underhill is very George Turner-esque. He has no self. I was going to say no self-worth. He doesn't want. It's more the fact he's got no. What's the word? He
Self-regard's the exact word. Rory,
self-regard. Yeah, exactly, Rory. So I didn't hear you, Rory. Yeah, he has no regard for himself at all, and I think that can be worrying for someone who's playing against him. But yeah, I don't really fear. You know, what's his name on the Elliot thingy on the wing.
Daly.
Daly, you know, so I really don't fear them that way.
I think their bench.
Before we wrap it up, then, Rory, for the public pod, give me your 30 seconds preview. 30 seconds. What do you think is going to happen?
30 seconds preview. I think Scotland will boss the first half as usual. England will come back strong in the second half, and then it's like a toss of a coin between the bench and whether who the referee sends off on about the hour mark is probably going to decide the game. Scotland definitely have enough, but whether they can, I mean, yeah, my big hope is that they come back angry after the France game, because they absolutely should be fizzing and fuming and other words that begin with F after that result.
Agreed.
And they've got the players to school England, kind of like they schooled them last year. So go out and do it, please. That would be lovely.
30-second prediction from you, Craig.
Yeah, I think it's. I think very much it's. They're going to just all congregate around Johan van der Merwe and try and defend against him. They're also going to try and smash Finn Russell as much as they possibly can, and that's going to give all the other players around Finn and around Duhan the strength and the ability to come through and really shock them. I think they're really they defend. They may have this blitz defence, but they defend very, very tight. So if Finn can get the ball out to the wings, I think we've got an opportunity to really punish them.
Excellent. All right, that will do us for the public podcast for this week. We will be back next week to review the game and see how our predictions went. For just now, though, it is goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Craig and Rory.
Bye.
Right, let me see how quickly I can get these streams off.